Police detain American for her luxury vehicle. But then she reveals her lieutenant uniform. Jessica Reynolds never imagined her imported car would become the source of such humiliation right on the streets of Beverly Hills. The years of sacrifice to achieve her position in the military career seemed to mean nothing to the dozens of people who stopped to watch the public embarrassment she was being subjected to. It was when the three officers ordered her to step out of the vehicle with her hands visible that she realized how far the situation had gone. "Ma'am, this car isn't yours. We have a report that it was obtained improperly," said Sergeant Tyler Johnson with an authoritative tone. "You're mistaken. This car is mine. I bought it with my own money," replied Jessica, trying to remain calm while feeling the curious stares of the crowd. "A woman your age couldn't possibly have a car like this, honestly," interrupted Corporal Brandon Miller, completely ignoring her words. The third officer, Private Ryan Smith, just watched silently, but his eyes showed the same suspicion as his colleagues. The traffic on the avenue had practically stopped, with people coming out of shops and restaurants to see what was happening. "Please, let me explain," Jessica tried once more. "We don't want an explanation. We want you out of the car now," ordered Tyler, placing his hand on his baton. The humiliation was unbearable. Jessica could feel tears wanting to surface, but she refused to cry in front of those people. At 30 years old, she had faced so many obstacles to get where she was that she wouldn't let herself be defeated at that moment. With slow and deliberate movements, she opened the beige coat she wore over her blue military uniform. The golden lieutenant insignias shone under the Los Angeles afternoon sun, causing immediate silence among the officers. "My God," murmured Brandon, visibly paling. "Lieutenant Jessica Reynolds, daughter of retired General William Reynolds," she said, her voice firm but laden with contained emotion. Tyler swallowed dryly. He knew that name. Everyone in the force knew it. General Reynolds had been his instructor at the academy 20 years ago, a man respected and feared for his strict discipline. "Sorry, Lieutenant, we didn't know," stammered Ryan, trying to compose himself. "Didn't know what?" "That a woman can earn her things through honest work," Jessica retorted, letting all her accumulated frustration show. The crowd that had been watching with curiosity now whispered embarrassed comments. Some people began to disperse, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. An elderly lady who had stopped to see what was happening shook her head in disapproval at the officers. "Lieutenant, it was a misunderstanding," tried to explain Tyler, sweating cold. "A misunderstanding based on what exactly? On my skin color, on the fact that I'm a woman? Or perhaps the combination of both?" questioned Jessica, her voice echoing through the avenue. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing." The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica put the car documents in her bag and adjusted her coat, trying to regain her composure. Her mother always said that dignity was something no one could take from her. Only she herself could give it away. "Excuse me," she said, heading back to the car. "Lieutenant, wait," called Ryan, stepping forward. "Can you forgive us?" It was truly a mistake. Jessica stopped and turned slowly. Her eyes met those of the young officer, and for a moment she saw something different there. Perhaps genuine remorse, perhaps just fear of the consequences. "Private, you did your job based on a report. I understand that. But the way I was treated, the lack of respect, that's inexcusable," she replied, her voice more controlled. "The tip came from a reliable source," Marcelo tried to justify, still visibly nervous. "What source?" asked Jessica, her trained military intuition kicking in. The three officers exchanged glances. There was something they weren't saying. Tyler fidgeted uncomfortably with his uniform gear before answering. "We received an anonymous call this morning. The person said a mixed-race woman was using a stolen car in the Beverly Hills area," he explained reluctantly. "An anonymous call specifically about me," Jessica insisted, feeling a chill down her spine. "The person gave details about the car, about you, even about the time you usually pass through here," admitted Ryan, realizing something was off about the situation. Jessica processed this information quickly. Someone was watching her. Someone knew her routine. This wasn't a case of random prejudice. It was planned, specifically targeting her. Do you still have the call record? She asked, now in full investigator mode. Of course, Lieutenant. It's all documented, replied Tyler, finally showing some respect in his voice. I need you to send me a copy of that record. Here's my card, she said, pulling a business card from her wallet. As Tyler noted the details, Jessica looked around. The crowd had dispersed, but she could feel this episode wasn't over. Someone had orchestrated this, and she needed to find out who and why. Lieutenant, once again, I apologize for the embarrassment, said Brandon, extending his hand. Jessica hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. It wasn't a gesture of complete forgiveness, but an acknowledgement that they'd been deceived too. Soldiers, you were used. Someone wanted this to happen exactly this way, she said, watching each of their reactions. You think it was a setup? Asked Ryan, genuinely surprised. I'm sure of it, and I'll find out who's behind it, Jessica stated with determination. She got in the car and started the engine. Through the rearview mirror, she saw the 3 officers still standing on the sidewalk, talking among themselves. Her mind was already working, analyzing possibilities, eliminating suspects. During the drive home, Jessica rethought every detail of the past months. Her recent promotion had generated some comments, nothing too direct, but whispers in the corridors about how a young woman had risen so quickly through the military ranks. She lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Malibu, a simple but well-located property. Her 15-year-old daughter Emma was at school, which was a blessing. The girl didn't need to know about the embarrassment her mother had gone through. Parking at the building, Jessica noticed something strange. A man about 40 years old, wearing sunglasses and a cap, was sitting on a bench in the square across from the building. When she got out of the car, he immediately stood up and walked away, speaking quietly on his phone. Going up to the apartment, she felt a tightness in her chest. If someone was really plotting against her, Emma could be in danger too. She decided to call the school just to make sure everything was okay. St. Catherine's Academy, good afternoon, the secretary answered. Good afternoon. This is Lieutenant Jessica Reynolds, mother of Emma Reynolds, sophomore year. I'd like to know if she's in class. One moment, Lieutenant. Let me check. Yes, she's in math class. Is everything all right? No, just a routine check. Thank you, replied Jessica, feeling momentary relief. Inside the apartment, she made coffee and sat at the kitchen table to organize her thoughts. She grabbed a notebook and started writing down everything she knew: the anonymous tip, the specific details that were given, the timing of the operation. Her military career had taught her that nothing happened by chance. Every move had a purpose. Every piece of information had a source. Someone wanted to harm her, but who and why? The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was an unknown number. Hello, she answered cautiously. Lieutenant Reynolds, this is Corporal Brandon Miller. Can you meet us at the police station? We have some information about the tip that might interest you. What kind of information? She asked, suspicious. It's better we talk in person. It's data we can't discuss over the phone, explained Brandon. Jessica hesitated. It could be a trap, but it could also be the key to finding out who was behind everything. She decided to take the risk. I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said. Before leaving, she called her mother, Margaret Reynolds, who lived in Santa Monica. Mom, I need you to pick up Emma from school today, Jessica requested. Is something wrong, honey? Asked Margaret, with the maternal concern that never changed. I need to take care of some work things. Nothing serious, but I'd rather you two stay together today, explained Jessica, trying not to alarm her mother. All right, dear, but you'll tell me everything later, right? I promise, Mom. When she arrived at the Beverly Hills police station, Jessica was greeted by Brandon, who seemed genuinely worried. Tyler and Ryan were also there, along with a detective she didn't know. Lieutenant Reynolds, thank you for coming. I'm Detective Thomas Wilson, introduced the middle-aged man with graying hair and a serious expression. Detective, Jessica greeted, maintaining her military posture. We conducted a preliminary investigation into the anonymous tip and found some concerning inconsistencies, began Thomas. What kind of inconsistencies? The call was made from a public phone, but the person knew details about your routine that only someone very close could know, explained Brandon. For example, insisted Jessica. Ryan opened a file and read, The person knew that you always drive down Rodeo Drive at 3 in the afternoon, that you stop at the traffic light in front of CVS Pharmacy, and that you usually wear a beige coat over your uniform. Jessica felt a chill. Those details were indeed too specific to be coincidental. "There's more," continued Thomas. The voice was disguised, but our audio analysis expert detected it was a young man, probably between 25 and 35 years old. "And the motivation?" asked Jessica. "The person mentioned that you had stolen opportunities from more deserving people," revealed Tyler, looking embarrassed. The pieces started falling into place in Jessica's mind. Someone in her professional circle was behind this, someone who felt wronged by her career advancement. "Can I hear the recording?" she asked. Thomas hesitated for a moment before nodding affirmatively. He turned on an audio device and the distorted voice echoed through the room. "There's a woman driving a stolen car in the Beverly Hills area, silver Ford, license plate ending in 847. She always drives down Rodeo Drive at 3 in the afternoon. She's mixed race, about 30 years old, wearing a beige coat. You'll find her stopped at the traffic light by CVS Pharmacy. She stole opportunities from more deserving people and is now using the money to show off." Jessica listened to everything in silence, analyzing every word, every intonation. Even distorted, there was something familiar about that voice. "Can you send me a copy of this recording?" she asked. "Of course, Lieutenant." "But there's something else," said Thomas, exchanging a look with the officers. "We checked and found out it wasn't the first complaint against you." "What do you mean?" "In the past 3 weeks, we received 2 other anonymous calls. One saying you were using undue influence to get promotions, another claiming you were receiving money in exchange for favors. Jessica Reynolds' blood boiled. Someone was systematically trying to destroy her reputation. "And why didn't you investigate these allegations before?" she asked, her voice controlled but filled with indignation. "Because there was no concrete evidence," admitted Thomas. "But after what happened today, we understand there's an organized campaign against you." "A smear campaign," corrected Jessica. "Exactly, and we want to help you find out who's behind it," offered Brandon. Jessica considered the proposal. Accepting help from the police could be useful, but it could also complicate things if the culprit was someone from within the military. "Detective, I appreciate the offer, but I need to handle this through military channels first," she decided. "I understand, Lieutenant, but we'll keep the investigation open. If you need our collaboration, we'll be here," assured Thomas. Leaving the police station, Jessica felt relieved to have allies, but even more worried about the implications of what she'd discovered. Someone was orchestrating a systematic campaign to destroy her, and that meant the attacks would likely continue. On her way home, she decided to make a detour to the headquarters where she worked. She needed to access some files and check if there were signs of who might be leaking information about her routine. The Airborne Infantry Brigade headquarters in Fort Bragg was a place she knew like the back of her hand. She had spent the last 5 years there, climbing step by step in the hierarchy. Every corridor, every room, every person had a story in her journey. "Good afternoon, Lieutenant," greeted the private at the guard post. "Good afternoon, Anderson. I'll need to access my office," she replied, showing her ID. Inside the administrative building, Jessica went straight to her room. The space was modest but organized, with diplomas and decorations on the walls, plus a photo of her receiving a medal from her father, General Reynolds. She turned on the computer and accessed the internal system. Her credentials allowed her to check who had consulted her personal file in recent months. The list wasn't long, but there were some names that caught her attention. Major Christopher Adams had accessed her file 3 times last month, Captain Derek Thompson twice, and there was an external query made by someone with administrative credentials. Jessica knew Major Christopher well. He had been a candidate for the same position she recently obtained. A proud man, 42 years old, he had always shown resentment for being passed over in favor of a rookie. As for Captain Derek, he was the cousin of her ex-fiancé, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Parker. The relationship with Daniel had ended 8 months ago, not very amicably. The external query was more concerning. Jessica tried to trace the origin, but the credentials were for general use by the administrative department. That meant someone with internal access had facilitated the information leak. "Jessica, good to see you here," said a voice behind her. She turned and saw Daniel standing in the doorway, in his impeccable uniform and forced smile. Tall, blonde, with blue eyes she once found captivating, now he only made her uncomfortable. "Daniel," she greeted, not hiding the coldness. "May I come in? I need to talk to you," he asked, already stepping into the room. "About what?" asked Jessica, saving her work on the computer and closing the screen. "I heard you had some problems today," he said with false concern. Jessica studied his expression. How could Daniel have known about the incident if she hadn't told anyone at headquarters? "What kind of problems?" she asked, testing him. "A run-in with the police, something about your car," he replied, confirming her suspicions. "And how did you find out about it?" Jessica confronted, crossing her arms. Daniel hesitated for a split second, but tried to cover it up. "News travels fast around here, you know how it is." "No, Daniel, it wasn't disclosed to anyone here, so how did you know?" she insisted, rising from her chair. "Jessica, why the hostility? I'm trying to help." He attempted to shift the conversation's focus. "Help with what exactly? I know you've been going through some difficulties lately. People questioning your rapid rise, comments about how you got your promotions." He left the sentence hanging. "Finish the sentence, Daniel," ordered Jessica, feeling her anger grow. "I'm saying there are rumors, and maybe it would be better for you to step back before things get complicated." He finally showed his hand. "Step back?" she repeated, incredulous. "A leave, perhaps a transfer to a less visible post, for the sake of your long-term career," suggested Daniel, with an air of doing her a favor. Jessica stared at him for a long moment. There it was, confirmation that there really was a conspiracy against her, and Daniel was at the center of it. "Get out of my office," she said, her voice low but firm. "Jessica, be reasonable." "Get out!" she shouted, pointing at the door. Daniel raised his hands in surrender, but his cynical smile revealed he had gotten what he wanted: to plant the seed of doubt and show he knew information he shouldn't have. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. After Daniel left, Jessica sank heavily into her chair. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but the picture forming was worse than she had imagined. It wasn't just one person acting alone. It was an organized group trying to destroy her career. She picked up the phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Colonel Samantha Wright," answered a firm female voice. "Colonel, this is Lieutenant Jessica Reynolds. I need to speak with you urgently." "Jessica, has something happened?" "I believe I'm the victim of an internal conspiracy to damage my career," she said directly. There was silence on the other end of the line. Colonel Samantha was one of the few women in a command position and had been Jessica's mentor since the beginning of her career. If anyone could help her, it would be her. "Come to my office immediately and bring whatever evidence you have," ordered Samantha. Colonel Samantha's office was in the main building of the military complex. It was a spacious room, with shelves full of military books and decorations reflecting a 25-year career of exemplary service. Samantha Wright was a 52-year-old woman, her graying hair always pulled back in an impeccable bun, her penetrating brown eyes having seen every form of prejudice and resistance a woman could face in the armed forces. "Sit down, Jessica, and tell me everything from the beginning," she said, pouring coffee into 2 cups. Jessica recounted every detail: the police stop, the anonymous complaint, the other previous complaints, the suspicious accesses to her file, and finally the conversation with Daniel. "Daniel Parker," murmured Samantha, writing down the name. "He's always been problematic. Since the academy, he's shown chauvinistic tendencies disguised as traditionalism." "Colonel, what can I do? If this campaign continues, my career will be over before it even starts," Jessica vented. "First thing, we're not going to let this happen. Second, we need more evidence before making any formal accusations," replied Samantha with determination. "What do you mean?" "I'm going to authorize a discreet internal investigation. We have our own resources for that. But meanwhile, you need to continue your routine normally, as if nothing were happening." "That won't be easy," admitted Jessica. "It's never easy being a pioneer, Jessica. You knew that when you decided to pursue a military career, but you're strong, competent, and you have allies. Don't let them see they've managed to shake you." Jessica nodded, feeling a bit more confident. Having Colonel Samantha Wright's support was like having a fortress by her side. "There's one more thing," said Samantha, hesitating. "Your father came to see me yesterday." "My father?" Jessica was surprised. "What did he want?" "He heard some comments about you and is worried. He wants to help you." "I don't need his help," replied Jessica, more harshly than she intended. "Jessica, I know you have your differences, but he's your father and a respected general. His influence could be useful. Colonel, with all due respect, I've spent my whole life proving I can succeed on my own. I'm not going to run to my father now that things have gotten difficult." Samantha observed the young officer with admiration and concern. She recognized that fierce determination, having gone through similar situations herself decades ago. "I understand your position, but promise me that if the situation gets out of control, you'll consider accepting help. There's no dishonor in having allies." "I promise," agreed Jessica, though she wasn't sure she'd keep it. Leaving the colonel's office, Jessica headed to the parking lot. The day had been emotionally exhausting, and she just wanted to get home and hug her daughter. On the way, her phone rang. It was her mother. "Honey, Emma is fine. She's here with me. But I need to tell you something." "What happened, Mum?" "This morning, when I was hanging laundry in the backyard, I saw a man across the street taking pictures of our house. When he noticed I was looking, he ran off." Jessica's blood ran cold. If they were watching her mother's house too, that meant Emma could really be in danger. "Mom, listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. Pack some clothes for you and Emma and go to Aunt Patricia's house in Santa Barbara. Stay there until I sort this situation out." "Jessica, what's going on?" asked Margaret, her voice worried. "I'm having some problems at work, nothing major, but I'd rather you stay away until everything calms down." "What about you? Will you be alone?" "I know how to take care of myself, Mum, but please take care of Emma." After hanging up, Jessica pressed harder on the accelerator. She needed to get home and check if there were signs that her house was also being watched. As she approached the building in Malibu, she slowed down and carefully observed the surroundings. There was a dark car parked across the street that she didn't recognize. Inside it, she could see the silhouette of a person. Instead of entering the garage, she parked a few blocks away and walked back, using a different route to observe the building from another angle. The dark car was still there, and now she could see there were two men inside. One of them was constantly talking on the phone. Jessica took out her phone and called the building's front desk. "Good evening. This is Lieutenant Jessica from apartment 704. Has anyone been asking for me there?" "No, Lieutenant. Everything's quiet here," replied the night doorman, Mr. Jenkins. "Mr. Jenkins, could you do me a favor? Look through the front desk window and tell me if there's a dark car parked across the street." There was a pause, then, "Yes, Lieutenant. It's been there for about 2 hours. I thought it was strange because nobody got out." "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. If anyone asks for me, you haven't seen me, okay?" "Of course, Lieutenant." Jessica hung up and considered her options. She could enter her house through the back, via the building's service area, or she could confront the men in the car directly. She decided on the direct approach. If they were there to intimidate her, she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. She crossed the street with firm steps and knocked on the driver's window. The man was startled and slowly rolled down the window. "Can I help you with something?" Jessica asked in an authoritative tone. "Oh, sorry. We're waiting for a friend," stammered the driver, a man around 30 with dark hair and stubble. "Waiting for 2 hours? Your friend must be running late," she said sarcastically. "Yeah, he's a bit disorganized," tried to explain the passenger, an older man with a more professional appearance. "Well, you can wait somewhere else. This is a residential block and the neighbors are getting uncomfortable with your presence." Sure. We'll leave right now," said the driver, hastily starting the car. Jessica mentally noted the vehicle's license plate and watched them drive away. They weren't professionals, that was obvious. They were probably just hired to watch and intimidate. Inside the house, she checked every room, every window, every possible sign that someone had entered. Everything seemed normal, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She prepared a simple dinner and sat at the kitchen table to process the day's events. Her life had completely changed in a matter of hours. That morning, she was just a lieutenant, proud of her achievements. Now, she was the target of a conspiracy threatening everything she had worked for. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Lieutenant Reynolds?" asked a young male voice. "Who wants to know?" "My name is Michael Peterson. I'm an investigative journalist with the Washington Post. I've received some information about a conspiracy involving your military career and would like to speak with you." Jessica hesitated. Talking to the press could be risky, but it might also be her only protection if things got worse. "What kind of information?" she asked. "I have evidence that there's a group of military personnel trying to harm you through false reports and defamation campaigns. I also have documents showing irregularities in promotion processes that might be related to your case." "How did you get this information?" "I have sources within the armed forces who are concerned about what's happening, people who believe you're being treated unfairly." Jessica considered the offer. Having the press on her side could be a protection, but it could also turn her life into a media circus. "Can I think about your offer and call you back?" she asked. "Of course, but Lieutenant, I need to warn you, they won't stop. If you don't defend yourself now, the campaign will intensify." "What do you mean by that?" "Tomorrow there will be a formal complaint against you for misusing military resources for personal benefit. It's a lie, of course, but it will be officially filed." Jessica felt the ground give way beneath her. A formal complaint would mean an official investigation, suspension of duties, a stain on her military record. "How do you know this?" "My source gave me the information an hour ago. The complaint will be filed by Major Christopher Adams based on evidence provided by third parties." "What evidence?" "Photographs of you with the imported car, bank records supposedly inconsistent with your salary, and witnesses who claim to have seen you receiving money from unidentified people." "All fabricated, obviously." "Obviously. But it will be hard to prove that without help. That's why I'm offering my services." Jessica Reynolds took a deep breath. Her career was hanging by a thread, and she needed to make a quick decision. "Can we meet tomorrow morning?" she asked. "Sure. Do you know the coffee shop at the Beverly Hilton, at 9 in the morning? I'll be there." After hanging up, Jessica felt lost. She was being cornered from all sides, and her options were running out fast. She decided to call Emma, who was at Aunt Patricia's house with her mother. "Hi, Mum," answered Emma, with the cheerful voice that always warmed Jessica's heart. "Hi, my dear. How are you?" "Good. I'm enjoying staying here with Grandma and Aunt Patricia, but when are you coming to pick us up?" "Soon, sweetheart. I'm just sorting out some work things." "Mum, at school today some girls were saying they saw you on television, that you were arrested or something. Is it true?" Jessica closed her eyes. The news had already reached her daughter's school. "No, Emma, I wasn't arrested. It was just a misunderstanding, but it's already resolved." "Are you sure? Because the girls were saying bad things about you and I got really angry." "I'm sure, my dear, and thank you for defending me. You're a warrior just like your mum. Always, Mum, I love you." "I love you too, my love." After hanging up, Jessica allowed herself to cry for the first time that day, not for the humiliations she had suffered, but for the possibility that her daughter might have to go through that too. She wiped her tears and headed to the bedroom. She opened the closet and took out a small box that was hidden behind the clothes. Inside it were important documents, some jewelry that had belonged to her grandmother, and a .38 caliber pistol her father had given her when she became an officer. Jessica picked up the gun and checked if it was loaded. She hoped she wouldn't need to use it, but after the day's events she wasn't willing to be caught off guard. That night she slept little. Every noise in the hallway, every movement in the building kept her alert. In the morning, she woke up, determined to fight for her career and her dignity. She arrived at the Beverly Hilton coffee shop a few minutes before 9. Michael Peterson was a man of about 35, thin, with glasses and the appearance of someone who spent a lot of time behind a computer. "Lieutenant Reynolds?" He stood up from a discreet table at the back of the coffee shop. "Michael," she confirmed, shaking his extended hand. "Thank you for coming. I know it couldn't have been an easy decision." They sat down and ordered coffee. Michael opened a briefcase and took out some documents. Before we begin, I need you to know that I have a very well-placed source within the military command. This person is risking their own career to expose this conspiracy. Why? Asked Jessica. Because they believe what's happening to you is morally wrong and harmful to the institution as a whole. Michael showed her photographs taken from a distance of secret meetings between Daniel, Major Christopher, and other people she didn't recognize. This is the group orchestrating the campaign against you, he explained. They meet weekly to plan the next steps. How many people are involved? At least 8 military personnel of different ranks, plus some civilians who were hired for specific services. What kind of services? Surveillance, document forgery, spreading rumors, pressuring witnesses. Jessica studied the photographs. Besides Daniel and Christopher, she recognized Captain Derek and 2 sergeants who had always shown subtle hostility toward her. What's their ultimate goal? She asked. To force you out of the armed forces in a humiliating way, as an example to other women who might have similar ambitions. And do you have proof of this? Michael showed her transcripts of recorded conversations, leaked internal documents, and a series of emails that made the conspiratorial nature of the group clear. How did you get all this? My source has privileged access and has been documenting everything for months. They suspected something like this could happen and prepared. Who is your source? Michael hesitated. I'd rather not reveal that for now, but I can guarantee it's someone you can trust. Jessica studied the documents. The evidence was impressive, but also frightening. The conspiracy was much broader and more organized than she had imagined. What do you propose we do with this? She asked. I'll publish a comprehensive story exposing the entire conspiracy. This forces an official investigation and protects you from future accusations. And the consequences for my career. Short term, there might be turbulence, but long term, you become a hero in the fight against institutional prejudice. Jessica considered the proposal. It was risky, but perhaps her only chance to survive professionally. When would you publish? This afternoon, if you agree, but I need your cooperation to complete some information. What kind of information? Details about how you began to notice the conspiracy, timeline of events, your perspective on what motivated the attacks. Jessica spent the next hour providing all the information Michael requested. He recorded the interview with her consent and asked several specific questions about those involved. One last thing, said Michael, putting away the recorder. My source told me that this afternoon, after the formal complaint is filed, they're planning another action. What kind of action? They'll try to pressure you to resign voluntarily. Someone close to you will approach you with an offer of an honorable exit. Who? I don't know exactly, but it will be someone you trust, offering a transfer or leave as a way to protect you from the investigation. Jessica nodded. She had already experienced something similar with Daniel the previous day. Michael, publish the story. I'll face the consequences. Are you sure? Absolutely. I'd rather fight head-on than be attacked from behind. They said goodbye with a firm handshake. Michael promised the story would be online by 5 in the afternoon. Jessica headed to the headquarters, knowing it would be a decisive day for her future. Upon arrival, she noticed unusual activity in the administrative building. There were more cars parked than usual, and she saw some officers who weren't normally there at that time. Lieutenant Reynolds, Sergeant Tyler Johnson called out as soon as she entered the building. Sergeant, Colonel Wright wants to see you immediately in her office. Jessica climbed the stairs with a racing heart. Probably Samantha had been informed about the formal complaint that would be filed. Come in, Jessica, said Samantha, as soon as she knocked on the door. Inside the office, besides the colonel, there were 2 other people, a lieutenant colonel she didn't know, and a serious-looking civilian woman. Jessica, these are Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Parker from the Military Inspector General's office and Dr. Patricia Lima, an attorney specializing in military law. Jessica greeted them both, feeling the tension in the air. Please sit down, requested Samantha. I have bad news. An hour ago, a formal complaint was filed against you for misuse of military resources and illicit enrichment. I was expecting this, Jessica replied calmly. You were expecting it? Asked Lieutenant Colonel Daniel, surprised. I was informed yesterday that this would happen. By whom? He insisted. Jessica hesitated for a moment but decided to be transparent. By a journalist who's investigating a conspiracy against me. The silence that followed was awkward. Samantha exchanged looks with the other two. Jessica, speaking to the press without authorization is a violation of military protocol, warned Marcus. With all due respect, Colonel, when I discovered I'm the victim of an organized conspiracy, I sought protection wherever I could find it. Conspiracy? Asked Attorney Patricia. Jessica recounted everything she had uncovered in the last 24 hours, from the anonymous tip to the evidence presented by Michael. These are very serious accusations, said Marcus. Do you have proof? I do. And by the end of the day, they will be public. What? Exclaimed Samantha. The journalist is publishing a full story this afternoon, exposing the entire conspiracy. Marcus stood up abruptly. Lieutenant, do you realize this could create a public scandal that will harm the entire institution? Colonel, I realize that if I don't defend myself now, I'll be professionally destroyed by a group of people who don't accept women in command positions. The room fell silent again. Patricia was the first to speak. From a legal standpoint, if the lieutenant was indeed a victim of conspiracy, she has the right to defend herself by any means necessary. But there are protocols to be followed, argued Marcus. Colonel, with all due respect, the protocols didn't protect me when I was publicly humiliated yesterday. They didn't protect me when my house and my mother's house were under surveillance. And they wouldn't protect me today when the false accusation was filed. Samantha sighed deeply. Jessica, I understand your position, but now we need to manage the crisis that's coming. What kind of management? Asked Jessica. First, you'll be temporarily suspended from your duties until the investigation is completed. It's standard protocol in cases like this. And after? That will depend on the investigation results and the impact of the media exposure. Jessica nodded. It was what she expected, but it still hurt to hear it officially. There's one more thing, said Marcus. During the investigation, you cannot leave the city without prior authorization. Understood. And we strongly recommend that you avoid any additional contact with the press without our approval. Is that an order or a recommendation? Asked Jessica. It's a strong recommendation, replied Samantha. After signing some documents related to the temporary suspension, Jessica left the office feeling strangely relieved. The worst had happened, and now she could focus on defending herself. In the hallway, she found Daniel waiting for her. Jessica, we need to talk, he said with a serious expression. We have nothing to talk about, Daniel. I have a proposal that could resolve this entire situation. Jessica remembered Michael's words about someone close offering an honorable way out. What kind of proposal? She asked, curious to see how far he would go. A transfer to the Washington, D.C. base with a guaranteed promotion in 2 years. You get out of this whole mess and still manage to advance your career. And in return, you withdraw all accusations against the people involved in this misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, repeated Jessica, incredulous. Jessica, be practical. You can't win this fight. There are too many powerful people against you. Accept the transfer and move on with your life. And if I refuse, the investigation will conclude that you're guilty of the accusations. Your career will end in disgrace. Jessica looked into Daniel's eyes and saw there the confirmation of everything she suspected. He truly believed he could intimidate her into giving up. Daniel, you can relay this message to your friends. I'm not giving up. I'll fight to the end, and when this story is over, you'll regret having messed with me. Jessica, don't be foolish. The conversation is over, she said, walking away. Daniel shouted after her, You'll regret this decision. Jessica left the headquarters with the feeling that she had burned all her bridges. There was no turning back now. It was all or nothing. At home, she called Emma to check if everything was okay. The girl seemed excited about staying at her aunt's house, which reassured Jessica. At 5 in the afternoon, her phone rang. It was Michael. The article is out, he said, and it's already making a huge impact. What kind of impact? The newspaper's website is overloaded with traffic. We've already received calls from other outlets wanting to interview you, and the Department of Defense issued a statement saying they will investigate the allegations. And the reaction from those involved. Daniel Parker has already been approached by reporters. He denied everything and said you're making up stories to defend yourself against the accusations against you. That was expected, but there's something new. My source informed me that 3 military personnel who were part of the conspiracy have decided to cooperate with the official investigation in exchange for immunity. Really? They saw the ship was sinking and decided to jump off. This means we'll have insider witnesses confirming everything. Jessica felt a wave of relief. Finally, things were starting to move in her favor. Michael, thank you so much for everything. It's not over yet, Lieutenant. Prepare for an intense battle in the coming weeks. They won't give up easily. In the evening, Jessica watched the evening news, which dedicated 5 minutes to the story. The anchor presented the case as a report of a sexist conspiracy in the American Armed Forces, showing excerpts from Michael's article and interviews with human rights experts. Her phone didn't stop ringing all night. Journalists, lawyers, women's rights organizations all wanting to offer support or request interviews. But the call that moved her the most was from her mother. Honey, I saw it on the news. I'm so proud of you. Thank you, Mom. That woman on the news said you're brave for reporting all this, and she's right. You've always been a fighter. I learned from you, Mom. Everything will be okay, honey. God doesn't let injustice prosper. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The next morning, Jessica woke up with a strange feeling of calm. For the first time in days, she had slept through the night. The fact that her story was public made her feel safer. While having coffee, her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Lieutenant Reynolds? This is Congresswoman Jennifer Stewart from the House Committee on Human Rights. I'd like to speak with you about your case. Jessica knew the name. Jennifer Stewart was a progressive congresswoman, known for her fight for women's rights. Congresswoman, good morning. How can I help you? Actually, I'd like to know how we can help you. We're considering opening a congressional investigation committee to look into cases of harassment and discrimination in the armed forces. That would be very important, Jessica replied. Could you come to Washington, D.C. next week for a preliminary meeting? Obviously, we'll cover all expenses. Of course, Congresswoman. I'll be available. After hanging up, Jessica felt hopeful. Having the support of Congress completely changed the political landscape of her case. But her hope was interrupted by another call. It was Colonel Samantha Wright, and her voice sounded tense. Jessica, I need to see you urgently. Something serious has happened. What is it, Colonel? It's better we talk in person. Can you come to the headquarters? Of course, I'll be there in an hour. On the way, Jessica speculated about what could have happened. Maybe Daniel and his allies had pulled a dirtier trick, or perhaps the evidence against them was even more damning than she had imagined. At the headquarters, she was greeted by Samantha in a meeting room smaller than her office. The colonel looked worn out. Have a seat, Jessica. What I'm about to tell you isn't easy. I'm prepared, Colonel. This morning, Major Christopher Adams was found in his office in a state of nervous collapse. He was hospitalized and, according to doctors, is in deep depression. Jessica hadn't expected this. Is he okay? Physically, yes, but psychologically he seems very shaken, and there's more. Before being admitted, he confessed to being involved in the conspiracy against you. Confessed? Jessica was surprised. He said he was pressured by Daniel Parker to participate, that he never wanted things to go as far as they did. And now? He's willing to testify officially against the others involved, in exchange for leniency in his punishment. Jessica processed the information. One of the main conspirators was now on her side. This is good for my case, isn't it? Very good. With his testimony, we have enough evidence to prosecute Daniel and the others. But there's a problem. What? Daniel has disappeared. What do you mean, disappeared? No one has known his whereabouts since last night. His apartment is empty, his bank account has been cleared out, and his car was found abandoned at the airport. Jessica felt a chill. Daniel fleeing meant he had more to hide than she had imagined. Do you think he left the country? It's possible. We're checking flight records, but he might have used fake documents. And the others involved? They're being questioned one by one. Some have already confessed, others still deny everything. Colonel, does this mean my case is winning? Samantha smiled for the first time in days. Jessica, not only are you winning, but you're causing a revolution. 3 other women in the military have already come to me to report similar cases of harassment and discrimination. Really? And there's more. General Robert Chambers, the regional commander, has decided to create a permanent committee to investigate and prevent cases of gender discrimination in the armed forces. Jessica felt a strong emotion taking over her chest. Her individual fight was turning into something bigger. "When can I return to my duties?" she asked. "Officially, you still need to wait for the investigation to end, but unofficially, you're already being considered for a promotion to captain." A promotion? The High Command wants to demonstrate that it doesn't tolerate discrimination and that it recognizes the value of competent officers, regardless of gender. Jessica left the headquarters feeling like a completely different person from the one who had entered there a week ago. Her life had changed drastically, but in a way she had never expected. On her way home, she decided to make an important stop. She went to her mother's house in Santa Monica to pick up Emma. Margaret greeted her with an emotional hug. "My daughter, you've become a heroine. The whole neighborhood is talking about you. Mom, don't exaggerate." "It's not an exaggeration, Jessica. Yesterday, Mrs. Williams from 202 stopped me on the street to say how proud she is to have you as a neighbor." Emma came running and threw herself into her mother's arms. "Mom, you're famous. Several people stopped me on the street to say you're brave." "And how do you feel about all this?" asked Jessica, worried about the impact on her daughter. "Proud. I always knew my mum was special, now everyone knows too." During lunch, Margaret mentioned she had received calls from distant relatives congratulating the family. Even neighbors who rarely spoke with her had shown their support. "My daughter, your grandmother would be so proud," said Margaret with moist eyes. "She always said you would go far." "Mum, it's not over yet. There might be more turbulence ahead." "It doesn't matter. You did the right thing, and that's what counts." That afternoon, back at her apartment in Malibu, Jessica received an unexpected call. It was her father, General William Reynolds. "Jessica?" His voice sounded formal as always. "Dad, I need to talk to you. Can I come over?" Jessica hesitated. She and her father had had a complicated relationship for years. He had never publicly supported her achievements, always insisting that she should prove her worth on her own. "Of course, Dad. You can come." An hour later, General Reynolds was sitting in Jessica's living room. Tall, imposing even at 68, he maintained his military posture even at his daughter's home. "Jessica, I read the article in the newspaper. I saw the interviews on television. And I'm proud of you." Jessica almost fell off her chair. These were words she never expected to hear. "Dad, you never publicly supported me. Why now?" "Because now I understand I was wrong." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I thought if I protected you, people would say you only got ahead because you're my daughter. So I let you face everything alone. And you let me suffer unnecessarily." "Yes, and I apologize for that." His voice trembled slightly. "When I saw you being humiliated on television, I realized my pride had blinded my fatherly love." Jessica felt tears welling up. These were words she had waited her whole life to hear. "Dad, I just wanted you to support me." "I always supported you, daughter. I just didn't know how to show it without hurting you." "And now? Now I want you to know you have my full support. And more, I will use all my influence to ensure this injustice is corrected." "You don't need to, Dad. I can defend myself." "I know you can, but you don't have to anymore. Now we're a team." Father and daughter hugged for the first time in years. It was a healing moment that both desperately needed. "There's something I need to tell you," the general said after they separated. "What?" "I was the journalist's source." "You?" Jessica was stunned. "When I found out about the conspiracy, I started documenting everything. I couldn't intervene directly, but I could provide evidence to someone who could expose the truth." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have refused my help. You're as stubborn as your mother." He smiled sadly. "So I found a way to help, without you knowing." Jessica didn't know whether to be angry or grateful. Her father had helped her indirectly, but he had still helped her. "Dad, next time just tell me the truth." "I promise, daughter." That night, for the first time in weeks, Jessica felt truly at peace. She had her family's support, recognition from her superiors, and hope that her fight had created positive changes. But the tranquility was interrupted by a call from Michael. "Jessica, we have a situation." "What happened?" Daniel Parker didn't flee the country. He was found. "Where?" "At a private psychiatric clinic in Bethesda. Apparently he had a nervous breakdown similar to Major Adams's." "Is he okay?" "Physically, yes, but psychologically, he's very shaken. And there's more. He wants to talk to you." "With me? Why?" "According to the doctors, he's consumed by guilt and wants to apologize in person." Jessica considered the possibility. Part of her wanted to confront him, but another part just wanted to move on. "I don't think I'm ready for that," she decided. "I understand. But there's something else. Daniel confessed that the conspiracy was much bigger than we thought." "How so?" "He revealed that there are similar cases at other military bases across the country. What happened to you was a test for a national cleansing plan of the armed forces." Jessica felt a chill. Her situation wasn't an isolated case. It was part of something much larger and more sinister. "What does this mean?" "It means your fight may just be beginning, but it also means you might be saving the careers of dozens of other women in the military." "Michael, I need to think about all this. Of course, but know that whatever you decide, you've already won. Your courage changed everything." After hanging up, Jessica sat on her apartment balcony, looking at the Malibu ocean. The city lights reflected on the water, creating a spectacle that always calmed her. Emma approached and sat beside her. "Mom, are you okay?" "I am, sweetheart, just thinking about everything that happened." "Do you regret fighting?" "Never." "And you know why?" "Why?" "Because now you can grow up in a world where being a woman isn't a disadvantage, where your achievements will be recognized for your merit, not questioned because of your gender." "You're my hero, Mom." "And you're my strength, Emma." Mother and daughter stayed there in contemplative silence, watching the nighttime beach activity. It was a moment of peace amid the storm, a reminder that some battles are worth fighting. 2 weeks later, Jessica was back at the headquarters, now with captain's insignia shining on her uniform. The promotion ceremony had been covered by the national press, becoming a symbol of change in the U.S. Armed Forces. Daniel and the other conspirators had been expelled from the Corps and were facing civil lawsuits for defamation and conspiracy. Major Christopher, for cooperating with the investigation, received only a 6-month suspension. But Jessica's greatest victory wasn't personal. The Gender Discrimination Prevention Commission in the Armed Forces, created after her case, had already received over 50 similar reports nationwide. "Captain Reynolds," called Colonel Samantha, approaching her desk in the new office. "Colonel, I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" "The High Command wants you to lead the new Gender Equality Division being created. It would be a promotion to Major with national responsibility." Jessica considered the offer. It was an opportunity to expand her fight to a national level, but it would also mean leaving her comfort zone. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, but know that you'd be perfect for the position. Your personal experience combined with your military competence would make a difference in many women's lives." That evening at home, Jessica discussed the proposal with Emma and her mother, who had moved to Los Angeles to be closer to the family. "Mom, I think you should accept," said Emma. "You can help other women like you were helped." "But it would mean traveling a lot, being away from you." "Honey," interrupted Margaret, "there are times in life when we have the opportunity to do something bigger than ourselves. This is one of those moments." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," they replied in unison. The next day, Jessica accepted the proposal. 6 months later, she was in Washington, D.C., leading a team of 15 people responsible for implementing gender equality policies across all the country's armed forces. Her office received an average of 20 reports per week, but also celebrated regular victories. Women fairly promoted, discrimination cases resolved quickly, structural changes benefiting the entire Corps. On a typical work morning, Her secretary announced an unexpected visitor. "Major Reynolds, there's someone here who says he's former Sergeant Tyler Johnson. He wants to speak with you." Jessica remembered immediately. He was one of the 3 officers who had approached her that fateful day in Beverly Hills. "Send him in." Tyler entered the room visibly nervous. He was in civilian clothes and seemed to have aged years in recent months. "Major Reynolds, thank you for seeing me." "Sergeant Tyler, how can I help you?" "Actually, I came to thank you and apologize." "How so?" "After what happened that day, I started questioning many things. I realized my prejudices led me to treat you unfairly. And I decided to take a sensitivity course on racial and gender discrimination. Now I work as an educator in schools, teaching young people about respect and equality." Jessica Reynolds was genuinely surprised. "That's admirable, Tyler. Major, you changed my life. You made me realize I was on the wrong side of history." "And the other officers?" "Ryan also made similar changes. Brandon, well, he still hasn't accepted he was wrong." "Tyler, I appreciate you coming here. It takes courage to acknowledge our mistakes." "Major, may I ask you a question?" "Of course. Do you forgive me for what I did that day?" Jessica looked at this man who had been one of the main figures of the worst day of her life and saw a genuine transformation there. "I forgive you, Tyler. And more than that, I admire you for having the courage to change." They said goodbye with a respectful handshake. Jessica felt moved by the visit. It was proof that real changes were possible. That afternoon, she received a call from Emma, now 17 and about to graduate from high school. "Mom, I've decided what I want to study in college." "What, my dear?" "Law. I want to be a lawyer and defend people like you." "Emma, are you sure? It's a difficult career." "I am. You taught me that it's worth fighting for justice. Now I want to do it professionally." Jessica smiled, feeling maternal pride fill her chest. Her daughter had learned the right lessons from that whole experience. 2 years later, at a ceremony in the White House, Jessica was promoted to lieutenant colonel and received the Distinguished Service Medal from the hands of the President of the United States. Her mother, now 70 but still vibrant, was in the front row with tears of pride in her eyes. Emma, already in her 2nd year of law, was cheering enthusiastically. Her father, General Reynolds, now retired but present at the ceremony as a special guest, approached her after the award. "Daughter, I've never been prouder of you." "Thank you, Dad, for everything." "No, Jessica, thank you for teaching me that true patriotism is fighting for justice, even when it's hard." That night at a family dinner in Washington, D.C., Jessica reflected on her journey. 5 years had passed since that humiliating day in Beverly Hills, but it felt like an eternity. Her individual struggle had turned into a national movement. Hundreds of women in the armed forces had benefited from the changes she helped implement. Cases of discrimination had dropped drastically, and the presence of women in command positions had tripled. But perhaps the most important change was personal. Jessica had learned that sometimes it's necessary to face storms to discover our own strength. "Mom," said Emma during dinner, "do you remember what you told me that night in Malibu when everything started?" "About what?" "That your fight was so I could grow up in a better world." "I remember." "Well, I want you to know you succeeded. Today, when the girls in my class talk about their careers, none of them question whether they can or cannot do something because they're women. They just plan their achievements." Jessica felt her eyes filling with tears. It was confirmation that everything had been worth it. "And do you know what makes me proudest?" asked Margaret, watching the gathered family. "What, Grandma?" asked Emma. "It's seeing that my daughter not only won her battle, but taught other people to win theirs too." The dinner continued with conversations about the future, about Emma's college projects, about Jessica's plans to further expand the gender equality program in the armed forces. It was a family that had weathered storms but emerged stronger and more united. A family that had learned that true love sometimes means supporting someone even when it's difficult, even when we don't fully understand their choices. Later, alone in her Washington, D.C. apartment, Jessica opened her desk drawer and took out a yellowed envelope. Inside was the first letter she had received from a female soldier thanking her for her courage. The letter said, "Major Reynolds, thank you for proving that we can fight and win. Because of your courage, I now have the strength to report the harassment I've endured for months. You showed me I'm not alone." It was just one of hundreds of similar letters she had received over the years. Each represented a changed life, a corrected injustice, a brighter future for someone. Jessica put the letter back in the drawer and walked to the window. Washington, D.C. stretched out before her, illuminated and pulsating. Her hometown, Los Angeles, was thousands of miles away, but she could feel its energy, its memories, its overcome challenges. In the window's reflection, she saw her own image, a 35-year-old woman with hair tied in an impeccable military bun, a uniform bearing lieutenant colonel insignias, but most importantly, eyes shining with the satisfaction of someone who had found her purpose in life. Her journey had begun with humiliation and shame, but had transformed into empowerment and social change. She had discovered that sometimes it's necessary to go through fire to emerge as tempered steel, and most importantly, she had learned that fighting for justice isn't just about winning individual battles, but about creating a better world for those who come after us. End of story. And now, dear listener, what did you think of this story of courage and determination? Do you believe Jessica made the right decisions in facing this conspiracy? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. We really want to know what you think about this journey of struggle and overcoming. Don't forget to leave your like if the story moved you, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one. Your participation motivates us to keep bringing narratives that touch the heart.